Skip Thanksgiving this year, Anna. Your presence makes everyone uncomfortable. Just transfer your usual monthly contribution to the business account. The text from my mother made my coffee taste bitter as I sat in my downtown apartment, overlooking the city I'd worked so hard to succeed in. My name is Anna Sullivan, and at 34, I had just received yet another reminder that my family only valued me for my bank account. The irony wasn't lost on me. 6 months ago, I had secretly saved our failing family restaurant by investing $100,000. But they didn't know it was me. They thought their mysterious benefactor was a silent investor my uncle had found. The family restaurant, Sullivan's, had been struggling for years. My younger sister Kate ran it with our parents, making all the wrong decisions while dismissing my suggestions because you're just an accountant. What do you know about restaurants? Never mind that I managed finances for some of the most successful restaurant chains in the country. I stare at my mother's text, remembering the day my father called me crying about potentially losing the restaurant. I could have let it fail. Maybe they deserved that after years of dismissing me while praising Kate's every mistake. Instead, I created a shell company and became their silent investor, thinking maybe they'd finally see my value. They didn't. Kate still ran the place like her personal party venue, hiring her friends instead of qualified staff. My parents still backed her every decision, even as the profits I'd helped generate slowly dwindled. The only difference was now they expected regular contributions from me, their reliable daughter with a good job, to help cover the gaps. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Kate. Mom's right. Thanksgiving will be better without your negativity. Besides, we're having some important investors over. We don't need you questioning everything like you always do. Important investors. I almost laughed. I was the only investor, and they were having Thanksgiving without me. I opened my laptop, logging into the system I'd set up to monitor the restaurant's finances. The numbers told the story Kate didn't want to see. They were heading toward trouble again. The profit margins were shrinking, staff turnover was high, and their reviews were dropping. Another text from Mom. Don't forget to transfer this month's contribution early. Kate needs to order new equipment. I thought about all the family dinners I'd sat through, watching Kate take credit for the restaurant's temporary success after my investment. My innovative management, she'd boast, while our parents beamed. Meanwhile, they'd relegated me to the role of family ATM, expected to provide regular help but never acknowledgement. My finger hovered over the transfer button in my banking app. It would be so easy to just give in again, to keep the peace like I always did. But something inside me had reached its breaking point. Instead of processing the transfer, I opened my email and composed a message to my lawyer. Time to activate phase 2, I wrote. We prepared for this possibility when I made the initial investment. My phone rang. Dad this time. Anna, honey, about Thanksgiving. You understand, right? Kate's worked so hard to make the restaurant successful. We can't risk anything going wrong with these investors coming. I kept my voice neutral. I understand perfectly, Dad. By the way, how much does Kate need for the new equipment? Oh, his voice brightened immediately. About $30,000. You'll transfer it today, right? Kate has her eye on some top-of-the-line stuff. I'll take care of everything, I said, and I meant it, just not in the way he thought. After hanging up, I looked at the framed business degree on my wall, the one they'd barely acknowledged because they were too busy celebrating Kate's latest failed venture. Next to it sat a photograph from the restaurant's opening day 30 years ago, me at age 4, sitting on my grandfather's lap as he cut the ribbon. Grandpa had built Sullivan's from nothing, turning it into the heart of our community. Before he died, he pulled me aside at my college graduation. You've got the head for business, Anna, he'd said. Promise me you'll keep an eye on the place. I had promised, though not quite in a way he might have expected. My lawyer called back within the hour. Everything's in order, she confirmed. As the majority shareholder through your investment company, you have full authority to make management changes. Do you want to proceed? I thought about my mother's text, my sister's dismissal, my father's transparent attempt to secure more money. I thought about Thanksgiving dinners spent watching Kate waste our family legacy while they praised her every mistake. Yes, I said firmly. It's time for a change. I spent the rest of the morning preparing documents and making calls. By evening, everything was in place. I ordered dinner from my favorite takeout place and raised a glass to Grandpa's picture on my wall. Happy early Thanksgiving, I murmured, smiling as my phone lit up with another text from Kate. Don't forget that transfer. The equipment supplier needs an answer tomorrow. Oh, there would be changes tomorrow, all right, just not the ones they were expecting. I closed my eyes, imagining their faces when they realized who their silent investor really was. Sometimes the best dish at Thanksgiving is a serving of long overdue truth. The next morning, I arrived at Sullivan's an hour before opening. The early autumn air was crisp, and the familiar scent of baking bread wafted from the kitchen. Through the window, I could see Kate directing her friends turned staff, probably planning another of her innovative menu changes that consistently failed. I wasn't alone. My lawyer, Diana, stood beside me, briefcase in hand. Behind us, two representatives from the restaurant management company I'd hired waited patiently. This wasn't just about revenge. I intended to save our family legacy, whether my family liked it or not. Ready? Diana asked, her heels clicking against the pavement as we approached the entrance. I nodded, squaring my shoulders. Time to meet the investor. Kate's face when she saw me walk in was picture-perfect confusion. Anna, what are you doing here? Did you transfer the money? Family meeting, I announced, my voice carrying through the restaurant. Now. We're busy, Kate snapped. Some of us actually work for a living instead of just pushing papers around. Mom and Dad emerged from the office, their expressions shifting from confusion to annoyance. Anna, we discussed this, Mom started. Today isn't good. We have important business matters. Yes, I cut her off, we do. I gestured to Diana, who began laying documents on the nearest table. Everyone, sit down. Who is this? Dad demanded, eyeing Diana suspiciously. This is my lawyer, I replied calmly. And these gentlemen represent elite restaurant management. But more importantly, I pulled out the final document, the one revealing my ownership stake. I'm your silent investor. The silence that followed was deafening. Kate's face drained of color. Mom's hand flew to her chest. Dad just stared at the papers, his mouth opening and closing without sound. That's impossible, Kate finally sputtered. Uncle Jim found our investor. Uncle Jim found me, I corrected. He knew exactly who he was talking to. He also knew what you'd all done to the restaurant Grandpa built. Diana stepped forward, professional and precise. Miss Sullivan owns 70% of Sullivan's restaurant through her investment company. Given the recent financial reports and management concerns, she's exercising her right to implement immediate changes. You can't do this, Kate shrieked, grabbing the documents. This is my restaurant. I'm the one who saved it. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Saved it? Kate, you're running it into the ground. Again. The only difference is this time, I won't stand by and watch. Anna, Dad began, his voice taking on that patronizing tone I knew so well. Sweetheart, let's discuss this as a family. Like you discussed uninviting me from Thanksgiving? I countered. Or like you discussed using my contributions to fund Kate's expensive mistakes. Mom tried next. We only wanted to protect you from the stress of running a restaurant. You have your corporate job. I manage finances for successful restaurants across the country. I cut in. I tried to help for years, but you all dismissed my advice because Kate was the restaurant person. Well, now you don't have a choice. I nodded to the management representatives, who began their prepared presentation. New systems, proper staff training, menu optimization. Everything I'd suggested over the years, delivered by voices they couldn't ignore. Kate started crying, her usual tactic when things didn't go her way. You're trying to ruin me. This is all I have. No, I said firmly. This is Grandpa's legacy, and I promised him I'd protect it. You can stay on as a manager, Kate, but you'll undergo proper training. No more hiring friends. No more wasteful spending. No more treating this place like your personal party venue. And if we refuse, Mom asked, her voice cold. Then I'll buy out your remaining shares at market value and run it without you. I met each of their eyes in turn. Your choice. Dad slumped in his chair, looking suddenly older. All those contributions you made. When we trying to help while you all ignored the real problems, I finished. That stops today. Diana began distributing contracts, new management agreements, training schedules, updated operating procedures. My family sat in stunned silence as their carefully constructed hierarchy crumbled around them. Oh, and about Thanksgiving, I added, gathering my things. Dinner will be at my place this year. After all, I am the primary owner of the family business. We should discuss the new direction. As I turned to leave, Kate called out, her voice small. Anna, wait. I didn't know. I paused at the door. No, you didn't. None of you did. That was the problem. The morning sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating the old family photos on the walls, decades of Sullivan history leading to this moment. As I walked out, I heard Mom start to cry and Dad trying to comfort her. But for the first time in years, I felt light, free from the burden of being their silent supporter. Phase 2 was complete. Now it was time to see if they could adapt to the new reality, one where the daughter they dismissed finally had the last word. The weeks leading up to Thanksgiving brought changes nobody in my family had expected. Under the new management team's guidance, Sullivan's began its transformation. Professional staff replaced Kate's friends, proper inventory systems were implemented, and the menu was refined to feature our most profitable dishes. Kate, surprisingly, was the first to adjust. After her initial tantrum, she threw herself into the training program. Maybe it was spite, or maybe she finally realized how close she'd come to destroying Grandpa's legacy. Either way, she was learning, properly this time. My parents were a different story. Mom still wasn't speaking to me, sending all communications through Dad, who had taken to calling me almost daily with a mixture of apologies and attempts to reason with me about returning to the old way of doing things. Anna, he said during one such call, couldn't we just go back to how things were? The family was happier then. You mean when you were all happy spending my money while excluding me? I replied calmly, no, Dad, this is better for everyone, including the restaurant. He couldn't argue with the results. Within 3 weeks, profits had increased by 30%. The reviews were improving and old customers were returning, drawn by the consistent quality and professional service. The day before Thanksgiving, I arrived at the restaurant for the final inspection. The place looked immaculate, running like a well-oiled machine. Kate was at the host station, reviewing the reservation system we'd implemented. Anna, she said, spotting me. Her voice was different now, less entitled, more professional. I've been studying the quarterly projections. I think I understand what you meant about sustainable growth. I nodded, feeling a strange mix of pride and vindication. Good, that's what Grandpa always aimed for. I'm sorry, she blurted out suddenly, for everything. For how I treated you, for wasting your money, for Thanksgiving. She trailed off, looking down at her hands. Prove it, I replied simply. Show me you can be the manager this place deserves. The next day, Thanksgiving, my downtown apartment was filled with the smell of roasting turkey and fresh-baked pies. I'd hired a professional chef, another perk of my restaurant industry connections, to prepare the meal. The table was set for 5, though I wasn't sure everyone would come. At exactly 4 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Kate arrived first, clutching a bottle of wine and looking uncertain in my elegant apartment building. This place is amazing, she said, glancing around. I never knew. There's a lot you never knew about me, I replied, taking the wine. Mom and Dad arrived next, Mom's eyes red like she'd been crying. She held a small package wrapped in silver paper. Before we eat, she said, her voice shaking, I want you to have this. Inside the package was Grandpa's old recipe book, its pages worn and stained with decades of use. My throat tightened. This was the heart of Sullivan's, the foundation of everything he built. He always said you were the one, Mom whispered. We should have listened. Diana arrived last, my surprise guest. My family's eyes widened when I introduced her not just as my lawyer, but as my partner of 2 years, another detail they'd been too self-absorbed to notice. Over dinner, the conversation was different from any family meal we had before. We talked about the restaurant's future, about real numbers and sustainable plans. Kate shared her ideas for special events, now grounded in practical business sense rather than flashy gimmicks. I found Grandpa's old guest book, she mentioned. I thought maybe we could do a throwback menu, featuring his original recipes, but price it according to the models you showed me. That's actually a good idea, I said, genuinely impressed. Mom dabbed at her eyes with her napkin. Your grandfather would be so proud of you, Anna. Both of you, she added, looking at Kate. We were wrong, Dad said finally, setting down his fork. We treated you like an ATM instead of seeing who you really are. Can you forgive us? I looked around the table, at Kate finally growing into her role. At Mom, learning to see me clearly. At Dad, understanding at last that love shouldn't come with conditions. At Diana, who squeezed my hand under the table, proud of how far I come. I forgive you, I said slowly, but things will never go back to how they were. We moved forward, as equals, as professionals, as family. They nodded, understanding the weight of the moment. Later, as we enjoyed pumpkin pie on my balcony, overlooking the city lights, Kate turned to me. So about Christmas dinner? Don't push it, I laughed, but without bitterness. Let's see how the holiday season goes at the restaurant first. As my family left that evening, each hug felt different, more genuine, less obligatory. Mom whispered "I love you" in my ear, this time without adding any requests for money. Kate left with a stack of financial reports to review. Dad shook Deanna's hand, welcoming her properly to the family. Standing in my doorway, watching them leave, I felt Grandpa's presence. He'd always said the restaurant was about more than food. It was about bringing people together, about building something that lasts. Finally, after all these years, we were doing just that. The end.